This video brought to you by our Patreons. Please consider supporting this channel and joining our Patreons at patreon.com/NovaWing24. Hi there folks, my name's NovaWing24 and welcome to another little review of a prepared and FSX product. So today we are going to be having a look at the recently released second payware product from new developer DC Designs, and that is of course the F-15C and F-15C E and I Eagle family. First off, before we get too far into the review, I do want to say thank you very much to the team over at DC Designs and Just Flight for providing me with the review copy of this aircraft today. And today we are doing this review in Prepared v4.5. Now, the aircraft is available and fully compatible with FSX Steam Edition Prepared 1, 2, and 3, and Prepared v4 and v5, though it is available in two separate editions. One edition for the 32-bit sims of FSX and Prepared 1 to 3, and a separate edition for Prepared v4.4, Prepared v4 and v5. Either way, though, the review is going to be applicable to both. Alright, so as I said, I'll just get that out of the way as we get started. So, we're going to do the pretty standard review here. We're going to be having a look at some of the cool parts of the external model. We're going to have a detailed look at the external model. Then we're going to go for our test flight. We'll do our cold and dark start, head up into the sky, go through a cruise, do a shakedown flight, have a look at the aircraft in all its versions, and then come in for a landing and do our final thoughts. Alright, so as we get started and as we're just sort of going through the model here, the model is, I mean, it's great. Like, it really is an incredibly detailed model, this one, and we're going to see some of the cool parts of that model as we go on. The aircraft itself is one that's it's very much it's a fascinating airframe because coming out of a Cold War requirement, it's reinvented itself several times throughout its career, and it's amazing to see that something so big and beautiful and so initially single purposed has survived in this long in this modern day of modern technology. So this particular version, as I said, this particular release covers a couple of different versions of the F-15. So much like their Super Hornet release, giving a bit of a family feel. So this release includes the F-15C and D, as the D was a recent addition to that, which is the air superiority version, the D being the two-seat sort of trainer version of the air superiority version. And then the F-15E being the Strike Eagle, being a derivative more focused towards ground attack. But as well as the F-15E, there's also included the Israeli version of that, the Realism, or the F-15I has also been included, which is based off of the F-15E. And these have been provided with two different flight models. So one for the air superiority version and its engine characteristics, and then another one for the uprated engines and different mass weights and different physicality designs of the F-15E Strike Eagle family. So really great to see the developers sort of taken, if they're, again, DC Designs is taking on board that sort of feedback of going, going to deliver an experience, but making sure that it's still a fairly accurate experience, and noting that when there is significant differences with flight models, actually taking note of those and actually providing separate flight models for this for these two different sort of subfamilies of the same aircraft. Now, as we're going around the 3D model here, as I said, like the 3D model itself is great. It's all detailed. It's got everything there. Probably the thing that I really wanted to sort of actually just showcase here with the reds on here as well, which we'll go through how to sort of turn the reds on and off as well. But I really wanted to showcase this for a second here, because this is just a neat little detail. I know it's something that most people never see, but I really appreciate this kind of attention to detail. The fact that the remove before flight tags actually move, like they're just, it's something, it's tiny, it's insignificant, most people will never see it, but that is such a cool little feature to actually see get added into this release. Like, it's small, it's simple, but it's really, really cool that that's there. So yeah, as I said, like the actual 3D model looks amazing, incredible. It's modeled a variety of the ancillary features around the outside of the aircraft, which we can see here, including the reds, the external ladder, and we've also got a guard and an external power unit model as well. So what we might do is we might jump into the cockpit and we'll get the aircraft started. We'll get ourselves underway for our test flight, and we'll go through, once we're up in the air, we'll go through a couple of the subversions and give some feedback on that too. So let's go through a cold and dark of the F-15C. All right, so here we are in the office of the F-15C. Now, the F-15D cockpit, the front cockpit is identical to this one. There is a secondary rear cockpit, which we'll have a look at a little bit later on. But yeah, so the front cockpit for the C and the D is exactly the same because they are the same airframe, essentially. So what we'll do is we'll go through our start procedure today. Now, a couple of things that I did want to show off. So as I said, from here we can see that we have guards, very studiously guarding our aircraft from all threats from the ground. Now, to control those, they are actually controlled via the pilot's kneeboard. Now, this is probably, I'll be honest straight up, I don't have a lot of bugbears with this release, but this is actually one that I have, is that the only way to activate the pilot's kneeboard is actually to turn the battery and the avionics on. Alright, and what that actually also does is it actually automatically removes all of the things that we're going to see here. So chocks, covers, ladder, canopy prop, GPU unit, and the guard are all actually automatically removed as soon as you turn your battery and avionics on. And yet that's also the only way you can actually go to select them to make them appear. So that's a little annoying and a little frustrating. Also, that the check mark that I know is supposed to appear doesn't seem to appear for me. I don't know whether that's just my install, but it seems to not appear. So, yeah, small thing, but it is a bit of annoying. So what I'm just going to do, I'm just going to quickly deselect them anyway, even though I can't see whether they're selected or not. We're going to click on them and make sure they're deselected. Alright, and then we're just going to quickly turn back the avionics and battery back off. Okay. Now, as I said, it's the fairly simplified start procedure. This one, it is kind of designed for a Control E start, if you so desire. Otherwise, you can go through a sort of a bridge startup procedure. So we're just going to close our canopy first. There we go. All right. So what we're going to do is we go through our startup procedure. So first off, we're going to go battery and avionics on. Now, if you do want to go through a quick start procedure, you can simply hit the master start switch here, and it will simply start the engine up, and it'll start everything for you automatically. In the meantime, though, what we're going to do instead, we are going to do our startup procedure. So what we're going to do, I'm going to make sure that my fuel switches are open, which they are. Excellent. All right, fuel dump switch is off. As I said, it's a bit of a simplified abridged start procedure because, again, this aircraft is designed with the idea in mind that you are... it's to give you the experience of flying the Eagle without necessarily having to go through a 12-week conversion course to be able to get the engine going. Alright, so let's go through startup engine 2 first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to nudge my throttle forward a little bit. Alright. Start our right engine on. Watching engine RPM slowly rising. Engine starting, spooling up. Excellent. And stabilized. And we'll get our left engine started. Now, for those who might be interested, though, yes, you can actually, if you so desire, you can actually remove the forks reflection there. If you so desire, you can remove that. But it is there if you do want to have it. As I said, it's not necessarily the most realistic, but I kind of like it there. It's kind of cool. It's kind of awesome. But there's a simplified instructions on how to remove that reflection if you don't, quasi reflection if you don't want it. A couple of things to note about the cockpit is that it does have a fully functional set of rear vision mirrors for the 64-bit version. That's the main point of difference between the FSX version and the prepared V4 and V5 version, is these actual rear vision mirrors are non-functional in the other one. Alright, so that's got our aircraft started, so we'll go through, we'll get our, have to get our lights on, which I probably should have done earlier. Alright, so we're going to put our anti-cols on. Okay, nav lights are on. That is pretty much everything we need to do. This is where you can extend a crew ladder. So if you didn't want to use the external animation of ladder, you can actually, there is actually one that's built into the aircraft that you can extend. All right, now the final thing I'm going to do, probably go through. Normally, I'll go through the panels once we're up in the sky. However, I did want to quickly do this though because I am going to remove the fuel tanks from our aircraft. Now, the reason for that is that on takeoff, we're going to do something, a maneuver which the F-15 is known for, which is because its engines are so powerful. We're basically going to stand her on a tail and do a zoom climb because it is something that this aircraft is capable of. Alright, well other than that, we are ready to go. So what we're going to do is going to go brakes off. We're going to taxi out for our departure here. Now currently we are here at RAF Lakenheath, and we're going to be heading up the coast, up the coast to RAF Luches is where we're going to be. Sorry, up to RAF Luches is where we're going to be heading for a bit of a visit today. Now in terms of ground handling, the only complaint that I have about the aircraft on the ground handling is that it's a little bit spongy, so you can definitely feel the aircraft sort of swaying a bit on the ground. And even now my throttles are fully at idle at the moment, and yet I'm accelerating quite quickly and really having to ride the brakes to stop my speed running away here. Now, modern aircraft modern jet aircraft will move forward on its own at the throttles at idle. It will do that. However, it shouldn't go as fast as this aircraft does. I mean, this aircraft can pull almost 40 knots just simply with throttles at idle, and everything that I'm reading said it should not be able to do that. So that's probably, again, we don't spend a lot of time on the ground, but it is something noticeable that I do notice, and it can catch you unawares, particularly if you're trying to maneuver quickly on the ground. You could tip the aircraft over, just so you know. Alright, we'll stop here at the edge of the runway. Okay. Now we'll do a check of all our systems here quickly first. Alright, everything looks good to me. Now, oh, by the way, so you have the pilot figure here. If you want to hide him from these views, you can simply click the button here, and you'll make the pilot figure disappear. Otherwise, as I said, it's kind of cool. It looks good for screenshots. Otherwise, you see the pilot figure regardless from the outside view. But from the inside view, you don't have to see yourself if you don't want to. But there you are if you are interested. Alright, as I said, what we're going to do is we're going to do a departure, we're going to do a zoom climb, and see how it performs. Now this thing, as I said, the power put out by the engines that this thing has. Oh, actually, one thing I forgot to do is I need to turn these on, because this is, yes, my intake ramps, you have to turn them on. So one of the cool things about the intake ramp is that they are actually accurately modeled. So if I just quickly, let me just turn those off again. So you'll actually see that they're in a fixed position here when that is off, but if you turn them on, then it is actually linked to engine RPM and angle of attack. So that is, again, it's one of those small things that the developers paid a lot of attention to and actually got pretty right from what I can tell. So it's great to see that little bit of attention to detail. Okay, so let's turn onto the runway. Alright, so with our configuration here, let's go throttles up. Now, the other quick thing is I do know from my reading some pilot's notes that you should be able to go throttles up without the burners and hold onto the brakes. Let's see how we go. Little bit of creep, but still not too bad. Okay, I'll take it. Alright, brakes off. Full thrust. Reheat. And climb. Gear up. And it's just literally almost standing this thing on her tail. And we're blitzing through 80-degree climb. Still accelerating. Yep. Definitely definitely got the flight. Yeah, that is. Yeah, I think we can say that that's pretty much right. I think we can say that. As I said, the sheer amount of power that is put out by the engines of this aircraft is absolutely insane. So as I said, I just really wanted to test that because that is just so damn cool. It really is. It's just such a docile, amazing. It's just and it's just so amazing that amount of power as well is just simply there. It's cool. Alright, now I understand as well, we might be able to do this, I believe that much as like we did with the Super Hornet, that there is a modeling of the sound barrier animation. So if we go through our reheat again, see if we can see that come through. Yep. And I'm just curious if it has the same issue when you bring it back down through the other way. Speed brake out. Yep, okay. So that's a minor thing where you still see that shot cone form when you come back down through the speed barrier, but it is what it is. Alright, so what we might do is let's engage our autopilot, and then we'll go through our systems here and have a look at some other parts of the aircraft. So, now the autopilot is a bit of a mixed bag, this one. As I said, it's more representative than maybe exact systems, again, keeping in mind with the philosophy of this aircraft. So let's go, switch over to GPS mode. Alright. So your AP master can be controlled either from the switch on the left on the standard FCS or over here on the right on the panel. Fairly basic, this one. So what we'll do is we'll get our autopilot now. We've changed it over to, so we changed over to GPS there because I have a GPS track logged. So let's then go autopilot to on. Now we'll do our altitude. We'll set that fairly high today. Alright, there we go. Be nice if we could punch that's either UFCP, but anyway. Okay, so let's go up to 28. There we go. Alright, so let's set our... So we do our altitude hold. There we go, and then we'll go our nav holds. So that will now pick up, bit of a frame rate hit there. So that'll now pick up and it'll now get us onto our correct altitude and back onto heading to allow us to focus on doing our review. Alright, now speaking of, now obviously as my terrible mouse aiming here, you can also set your, this is where you'll set your frequencies as well. Now actually we're going to have a frequency that we're actually going to be locking onto first. So that's 113.9. Actually going to be our first waypoint that we're going to be flying over. Now as part of that, a little bit hard to see with that that lighting in the HUD there, but it actually does actually show as well on the HUD your 113.9 and the range to go on that VOR. So that's a nice little feature as well in the HUD. The HUD, speaking of the HUD, for the most part I'm pretty happy with it. But again, it's almost identical to the HUD from the Super Hornet. The big issue I have with it is that with the altitude, it doesn't, you got the altitude there and it'll show you your barometric altitude and your rad alt, but it won't show you your vertical speed indicator, and that's a huge issue that I have. There is no VSI. It's an incredibly important piece of information that you need flying an aircraft, especially a fast jet, and not having it is a huge issue, just saying. Anyway, alright, let's take this opportunity to go through the rest of our cockpit and have a look what we got here. So, we've had a look at the weapons rack here. Again, the weapons aren't destructive or anything like that, not TACPAC compatible. This is purely here just as a representational. And you know what? It works exactly as advertised and it looks great, and that's what it is. I'm not going to go too far into that one. Otherwise, on your left MFD, on the C and the D, you've got your checklists here. You've got a HSI displaying here for any of you. So again, we can see our DME. We've got 78 nautical miles to go for that one. Weapons we had a look at, you've got a HUD repeater here. Now, interestingly enough, same as what we saw with the Super Hornet, which is the HUD repeater there's a differentiation between the HUD repeater up here. It's got the barometric altitude in inches of mercury, but on the HUD repeater, it's got it in hectopascals. So it's a bit annoying that they're disparate. They should match, and there should be an option somewhere for you to change the setting between the two. I understand why the developer's done it, in the fact that he wants to cater for more European pilots and Australian pilots who work in QNH rather than in inches of mercury. But you're better off having a switch somewhere that switches both systems to be the same thing. Yeah, as I said, hopefully we might see a change, but I don't know. And finally, we've got a little bit of a radar display here, not really functional. There you go. Alright, now back over to this one. We've got, so actually, no, sorry, tell you what, I do believe the red is representative, if not actually slavable. So again, you've got the radar display up here, and a God's Eye view radar display up here as well. Both of these simply feed off AI traffic information and just put a simple tag there for your information. Now, over here, you've got your standard frequency setting up here, and this is where you can use your voice channels over here. Nav radios, as I said before, we're talking about over here, Nav 1, and that's kind of it, really, for the cockpit of the sea. Now, what we might do is let's jump outside and have another look at the externals of the aircraft while we're up here in cruise. So here we are of the F-15C while we're in cruise. Again, as I said, like, the model is amazing. It looks absolutely brilliant. I really don't have a problem with it. The one thing that does it bugs me. Actually, we just use this moment to actually have a look here, so we can see here that now that we've sort of leveled off in cruise and we're going for a fair old clip of knots, that the intake ramp has actually now readjusted itself. So that's again, it's just nice to show that those are linked to the animations of the air, like to the airspeed and other information of the aircraft. So nice attention to detail from the developer that I really wanted to showcase, and I think is a really cool factor here. As I was alluding to before, there is a little bit of a bugbear that I have, and that's with the weapons payload. So the payload, and okay, this is a bit of a purist in me coming out here, is that the payload for this aircraft, for the F-15C and D, is the current payload option, which is AIM 120s with AIM 9s. So you can have the AIM 9s on both on the shoulder pylons. You can have them on both of those, both inboard and outboard, and the AIM 120 on the inboard, exactly as the aircraft can have in real life. And then you've got the 4 hard points on the main fuselage. Now, originally the F-15 was designed for the AIM-7 Sparrow, and which is a semi-active radar homing missile. And that's what it was designed for. It was essentially the airframe was designed around that weapon system. And it's just a shame that, I know they're not really, I believe they're not even in service anymore, but it's just a shame that they're not modelled. Like, it really is a piece, it's just such an iconic combination. The F-15 Eagle with the AIM-7 Sparrow, it's an incredibly iconic combination, and just a real shame that it's not featured. So, it's a small thing, I can't, I'd really like to see it. I can't really fault the dev too much for it, but I really just think that it would have been so much cooler if it had it. Small thing, I know, but yeah, there you go. It is what it is. Alright. While we're having a look at this is probably a good opportunity for us to have a look at the differences between the C and the D. So let's jump over onto the D airframe. So externally, no real difference, just like there isn't a real much of a difference between the F-15C and D in the real aircraft, other than the addition of the second pilot in the back there. So it is designed for either a passenger or an instructor pilot. So as I said, externally, no real difference, as I said, other than adding that second cockpit in. It does share the same flight characteristics as the F-15C, which, the real-life airframe does as well, so there's no real major differences between the two. Some subtle differences, though, in the cockpit, so let's jump inside and have a look at those. Now, in terms of the front cockpit, there is no difference in the front cockpit. So exactly the same setup, no changes there. And actually, this is a good way we can actually see that. So the radar display is, as I said, it's not functional in the fact that you can like tag targets or anything like that, but you can actually see what is an aerial target, and also the same on the left here. So that's a God's eye view sort of version as well. Okay. So that's our front cockpit. As I said, no difference between the two. Rear cockpit, again, just a repeat. It's very, very basic. It is a functional cockpit, and as I said, it is designed for an instructor, so it is a repeat of the front. You don't have a heads-up display, so it's a basic cockpit, but you've got a what's essentially what would be your sort of clipboard, but it is not actually model or interactive or anything like that. So steam gauges, no HUD or HUD repeater, but still is functional and usable. And again, same controls as before. We can activate our little pilot model there, or turn him off as required. Yeah. Click point, get the right click point. There we go. So as I said, it's nice to see that there is a bit of a difference. Now, there are more differences, however, when we go into the Strike Eagle family. Alrighty, so in the Strike Eagle cockpit, we really start seeing the differences between the generations and the family that is the bigger family that is the F-15 Eagle, and particularly the step change between the air superiority of the F-15's version of the F-15C, and then the Strike Fighter version that is the F-15E. So the first thing we can see is that we're more of a modern cockpit. So we've got a UFC, sort of a digital UFCP up here. We've got these sort of large DDIs, and we've got a moving map display as well. It does still share some commonality, and again, probably in line with the fact that this is again a rendition of the aircraft, not necessarily supposed to be 110% accurate. This is supposed to give us the feeling of flying the aircraft, rather than maybe having to, as again, not having to go through a 12-week conversion course. So some functionality is limited. So the first thing is that we've got so let's probably go through some of the instrumentation first. The side panels on the side here, they are all shared. So again, these are all shared. Nothing is really different. I'll get to my ramps back on. There we go. So the side panels are shared. There's nothing really different about those. On your HSI, those you do have a couple of different functioning HSIs. So you have two interactive HSI, two interactive digital displays now. So the one on the left is pretty much exactly the same as the ones we saw before. So we've got the checklist, we've got the HSI, weapons, HUD repeater. This time you also now have engine parameters on this side as well. In terms of weapons, obviously we do have different weapons loadouts to reflect the fact that this is a Strike Eagle, so it is designed more for ground attack. And I said we've got the full suite on the externals here that we'll have a look at in a minute. Otherwise, everything else is pretty much as before. Same HUD repeater with the differentiator between the frequencies there. Now, in terms of the UFCP at the front here, this is non-functional. Again, would it be nice if it was functional? Absolutely. Am I okay with it not being functional? Yes. Again, because it's that whole thing of it being that it is supposed to be representative without having, still being functional. A radar display. So the DDI on the right-hand side here, we've got a radar display. HUD. We have a FLIR this time. So forward-looking infrared. So again, same implementation that we had on the Super Hornet, and again, this feature is exclusive to prepared V4 and V5. We then have engine parameters repeated again, HSI checklist all over again. So again, kind of cool, kind of awesome. There you go. In the center here, we have a moving map display, again derived off data from the default systems, default systems and GPS system, but just displaying it there. Nothing real functional. Both the radar displays and the moving map display can be changed using basically emulating a idea of actually sort of going in and out using touchscreen displays rather than anything else. So that is available on screen there. All right, now probably the big difference. The big difference, though, in the F-15E is the weapons systems operator or the backseater's cockpit. So let's go and have a look at that. So our Wizzo's cockpit is a little bit more different because there's a lot more going on here. Now this time we have 4 DDIs and each one is independent. They are kind of repeated though, so we are looking at sort of, you know, A and C and B and D sets of those, but all 4 of them can be activated independently and are independent of the front cockpit's DDIs. So unlike what we saw in the Super Hornet, where the DDIs were slave to whatever was displayed in the front cockpit, this time round they are actually independent. So you can have your rear cockpit displaying one thing and your front cockpit displaying something else, and they won't interfere with each other. On the right side you do have a repeat of the UFCP, again fairly much non-functional, but yeah, it is what it is. Otherwise you do have controls modeled as well, and just a basic side setup as well. So functional, yes, definitely a step forward for the developer from what they did in the Super Hornet. So I can't complain about it, and I think it's really, really well done. The one thing though I did want to quickly cover off though is, although the UFCP is non-functional in terms of the buttons and you can't use the keypad, what you can do however is that your NavCom and ADF frequencies and transponders can all be changed simply by using your scrolls or click buttons. You can actually move those and change those as well. So it's non-functional in the traditional sense, but it is semi-functional for what you need it to be. So as I said, it's fine, it is what it is. So looking outside the aircraft, we can see that you can definitely see the fact that, you know, the F-15, it is an F-15 Eagle. I mean, that part is obvious. It's still got the same wing area, the wing plan form and everything else, but you can also really tell the differences between the aircraft. The fact that you've got the conformal fuel tanks and weapons, sort of the abilities to carry conformal weapons, is a big change as well. The cockpit is also slightly redesigned, and sort of other features that are specific to the Strike Eagle. Now, as I said, you do get 2 different versions. This is the standard F-15E that we're going to have a look at first, and then we'll have a look at the Israeli RAM version as well afterwards. In terms of weapons and equipment options that you have available to you, so you do have lantern, like sort of targeting pods, and flare pods underneath the engine intakes, so those are modelled. You also have weapons carriage along the side weapons bases, so conformal weapons stations as well. So you get, in the setup for this one, you get a set of LGBs, and you also get a set of 500-pound Mark 82s as well. Otherwise, you have the same sort of air-to-air weaponry options that the F-15C has in terms of on the wings. So you do have the AIM-120 or AIM-9s on the shoulder pylons, and then fuel tank options on the wings. And then on the center line, you have the option of a JDAM or a fuel tank as well. And then these are all, of course, repeated on the other side of the airframe. In terms of model quality, again, I cannot fault the model of this aircraft. Like, again, it's really, really well done. Beautiful use of high definition textures and high quality textures throughout as well. So you just can't fault the modeling. It looks right. It definitely looks like the aircraft that it is representing, which is, you know, a fairly important thing to do in flight simulation. And I have to say, a huge shout out to them for the quality of the textures that they did. Particularly, as I said, this is my favourite one. I always love Tiger Meat's colour schemes, and this is one that I was really hoping they were going to make, and I'm really, really happy that they did make them. Now, we might just take this opportunity now. So now that we've had a look at the F-15E, let's have a look at the Israeli version. And here we are with the F-15I or RAM, which is the Israeli version of the F-15E Strike Eagle. So, nothing really is, there's nothing really sort of different. It does have a couple of interesting, unique model features though, in the fact it's got this little, and honestly, I don't know what it is. It's sort of very, it's always been hinted at that it's some form of communications or sort of, you know, or radar device, and nobody's really sure exactly what it is. We've got the little R2 droid sort of thing sitting behind the second cockpit there. A couple of things to note though, and again, and I love this attention to detail about it, is that although it is, you know, based off the F-15E, it is sort of uniquely Israeli, right down to the fact that although in the weapons selector it says AIM-9 Sidewinder, it's actually not. They actually model what it actually is, which is a Python, which is a Israeli indigenously produced infrared guided air-to-air missile. So that's again, I'm really appreciating the attention to detail that DC Designs is putting into this product. Otherwise, as I said, it shares a lot of commonality with the F-15E Strike Eagle and shares the same common flight model. Again, beautiful high-definition pictures. Alright, that's goes through all the different variants here. So what we might do is we'll jump back into our F-15C and then we'll finish our flight, come in for a landing, and give our final review over at RAF Luchas. Alright, just one thing before we do our final landing. I just want to show off the night lighting for this aircraft. So the night lighting is pretty effective, pretty cool. The main thing I wanted to show off is that the fact that in one of my issues that I had with the Super Hornet was that the slime lighting didn't seem to work. So the slime lighting in the F-15 works, but it's interesting because the developers chosen not to bind it to any of the standard lighting commands. They've bound it separately, literally, and they've done it correctly, I suppose, in the fact that they've put it in the formation light style. So now we've turned that. Let's have a look at what it looks like outside. And there you go. So you can see that the slime lighting and the night lighting is working as advertised on the aircraft. So it's great to see, again, the developer growing and that little implementation. As I said, it's neat and nifty, and I like the fact that he's done it a little, it was a little off-putting that they didn't include it as part of, they didn't sort of do it as part of the standard lighting commands, but also I like the fact that they made sure that it went in, and it went in accurately. So as I said, the aircraft is designed, this aircraft and this model, and all of the DC Designs range is designed to give you the experience of flying the aircraft without requiring the 12-week conversion course. And it really does capture that in that way. So I'm impressed. I think the night lighting looks pretty good, especially in the internals. Alright, here we are coming in to Luchas. We'll do an overhead brake into the pattern. Okay. Now, one of the things that's been noted about this aircraft is that they're supposed to be exceedingly docile. While it's incredibly agile and powerful, it's also exceedingly docile. So we'll see how she goes during our approach here. Now, one of the things is said that it's a bugbear, and again, hopefully we'll see it improved or fixed at some point, is the fact that there's no VSI for me. Like I'm not seeing any VSI information in the HUD, which is kind of important. It's really, really important, and that's just really frustrating that the information's not there. As I said, hopefully the devs said that they are working to fix it after the Super Hornet review, so hopefully we might see something soon. But yeah, it's not been deployed yet. One thing though I have noted is the fact that the GPWS seems to have been disabled. So it seems that the patch when the dev came through and put the patch on to add in the D model of the aircraft, it seems that they've removed the GPWS. So that's always good. Don't have an annoying voice trying to tell me that I'm sinking all the time when I'm trying to do normal maneuvers. Okay. So we've got coming in here. Flaps out. A little bit fast at the moment, a little bit high. Get the E-bracket centered on the numbers. It also seems that the speed bracket seems to be better this time. I'm probably flying. I am flying a little fast. Just checking my data there. A little bit fast, a little bit high, but The data seems to be a lot better, more accurate this time than there was on the Super Hornet. And gentle coming down. It did, and that's the thing, is she actually floated like I've seen the pilot reports are saying, is that she does float a lot if you're not careful. So that's really impressive that their developer actually got that right in their aircraft modeling. So again, I don't have time on an Eagle, but from everything that I've read, it does look like they DC Designs have got this one right. So I'm impressed. I'm happy with that. All right, let's park our aircraft up. Let's see if we can find all these hardened shelters, and then give our final thoughts today. All right, so final thoughts. Final thoughts. Okay. This is this for me is a step up from the Super Hornet. I think it is a great add-on and a great portrayal of of what is an absolutely iconic aircraft. Um, as a developer, watching DC Designs have learned from their Super Hornet experience, and they've grown from that, which is great to see. It's always great to see when a developer learns. Is it, and again, it goes back to the same sort of discussion that we had around with the Super Hornet. Is it a 100% by the book exact replication of the real world aircraft? No, it is not. It does not pretend to be. What it provides, though, is it provides a good and a close enough experience that those of us, we can jump in, fly it, experience what it would be like to be an Eagle driver, without having to go through the 12-week conversion course. And that, for me, is what it's all about. And I'm really impressed with that. So I think that in that regard, the developer has nailed it, completely nailed it. It really has. I have a couple of issues. Some of the textures are a little bit, we could do a little bit more work. The animations are, however, really well done. This kind of sort of extra attention to detail is also great. Night lighting is definitely improved. But yeah, as I said, in terms of bugs, a couple of quality of life issues. Again, that VSI, I think that could be better. Well, not it could be better. It just needs to be implemented. Having the barometric pressure units align between both HSI and align between HUD and HUD repeater, that needs to be done. But really, it really for me shows that this is what I think the Super Hornet was sort of supposed to be, and I think it shows that they got it right for this one. Overall, I'm fairly impressed by it. Again, as I said before, it's not targeted at those who want a 100% accurate by-the-book simulation. This is for, you want something that's close enough so you can get the experience of it without going through the 12-week conversion course. It doesn't have functional weapons, again, because that's not what it's supposed to do. If you want functional weapons, honestly, go fly DCS. This, however, is designed to give you the experience of flying this aircraft, and I think in that regard, what it sets out to do, it does do very well. So there you go. That's my review for this one. So that does round out this review. I think for me, it comes highly recommended. As I said, I'd like to see the AIM-7 Sparrow included as one of the weapons options for the C and D model. I'd really like to see that. But other than that, I really can't fault it. I think overall it's a great add-on, this one. Alright folks, that does now round out this review for this one. Thank you very much. I do want to say thank you very much to the team over at DC Designs and Just Flight for providing me with the review copy of this aircraft today. And otherwise folks, thank you very much for joining me. Don't forget as always to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy these videos and want to see more. And you can catch up with me and all the things I'm up to between videos by finding me on Facebook and on Twitter. Just search NovaWing24. Alright folks, thanks very much for watching. Take care, safe skies to all, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.